NASM is giving you free courses. That's right, free courses each month just for being part of the NASM family. Learn about everything ranging from nutrition to strength, weight loss to stress relief, and everything in between. Click the link in the bio for information and to claim your free course before they're gone.
You're listening to the NASM CPT podcast with Rick Richey, the official podcast of the National Academy of Sports Medicine.
Hello and welcome to the NASM CPT podcast. My name is Rick Richey and I want to welcome all y'all to this podcast and an opportunity to meet one of my favorite people at NASM. So this is going to be a meeting with a friend of mine named Rich Fahmy, and Rich has been working with the NASM for quite some time now, and I should know because I was there early on helping to onboard him and bring him on. So with that said, Rich, how you doing?
Hey, Rick. Good to be here, man. Thank you for having me. Yes, you were one of my early mentors as a master instructor, so thank you for that. It was great.
Oh, man, thank you. I appreciate it. I enjoyed working with you through the years, and you've become very, very helpful to me as I've worked on several projects in the last, 6 months or longer. I want to say thank you for all the support and you know what? Yeah, I was talking to Kyle and several other guys because I'm working on another project, and they were talking about some of the challenges of writing out some chapters and textbooks and things. And I said, if worse comes to worse, and I just need somebody to help me through it, like mentally, I'll call Rich. And then everybody on the call goes, yeah, you should call. Yeah, me too. That's what he always makes me feel better. So.
That's funny. Yeah, I don't know what it is about calming down authors or something, but you always do a great job. So I don't know. People will call like, I don't know how I feel about this chapter. Like, well, let's discuss. Let's talk through it. Yeah, it's funny.
That's awesome. Well, with the fact of the matter is, you get to be introduced to a lot of concepts and content, and read it and get it from authors long before anybody else gets that information. So in some ways, I'm really jealous of you because you're getting the newest information and research out there.
Yeah, I mean, I always pinch myself in a way because basically I get to be a professional nerd. And a lot of the content we get too, some people may be disappointed to find out I take a lot of it out. Because sometimes the depth is too great, and I might save it for a continuing ed course or something that's a little bit of a deeper dive on a topic. But I get access to all these experts, and it's really cool. It's really, if you're a geek, then it's a cool gig. I can't complain.
That's one of the things I never got from you. Rick, you have gone too deep. You know too much. We're going to have to cut back. I'm like, no. I kept it quite superficial.
Yeah, your depth is appropriate. Actually, I do a lot of slashing and burning through chapters after the author's done. So.
Yeah. Well, that's a good process. Well, one of the things I wanted to bring you on today, actually, let me just address this real quick. I see a guitar in the background. How long has that been going on?
Oh, it's I've been playing since I was in high school, but I call it, instead of actually, progressing for 20 years or 25 years, it's more of like 1 year repeated 25 times. So it's I'm a noodler. So my goal is to be just enough. What you don't see is a closet full of other guitar cases. So my goal is to be just good enough to justify making multiple guitar purchases, and my wife not rolling her eyes too much. Although I think we're past that stage.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, I've heard it's addictive. I heard like once you start playing instruments, and just so you know, recently I picked up this little guy.
Nice.
Ukuleles. My wife got us an ukulele for the holidays last year, and cool. I really was into it for a while, and it was amazing starting out. I'm like, that's impossible. Like the way the fingers move, but this is a great conversation we could go into completely on like motor learning, to be honest.
Oh, it is. Totally.
How, like fingers just don't move the way you want them to move, and then one day they go there. They just go. It works. So anyway, I love playing the instruments. I think it's good for my brain and good for a little motor learning. But with that being said, I'm going to move us into the topic really I want to discuss today. And for those of you here with us, just joining us, this is Rich Fahmy. And I want to talk about wellness because early on, this year, I was speaking with somebody, and they were talking to fitness professionals, and many of themselves considered themselves or fancied themselves a wellness professional. And so I kind of want to get an idea from you. What is the difference? Because I would not categorize a personal trainer in with a wellness professional necessarily. Sure. And so what is wellness, and kind of talk us through the difference between somebody that can work with people through wellness and somebody that works with people for fitness?
Sure. I think what a lot of people understand about fitness is that will it impact someone's wellness greatly? And absolutely it will, right? So, that is, but to say you're a wellness professional might be a little different. So, some common things I think that are helpful to get some definitions around it. So if we, for me, for the longest time too, I would say I'm a health and fitness professional, right? Especially starting as a trainer, and there's a lot of overlap, but if we were to define each one, health could be thought of as looking at specific parameters, right? Like your cholesterol, your blood pressure, body weight, triglycerides, blood markers, all these different things, sort of these things that doctor's office would look at to assess your health, right? If we're looking at fitness, then that's what we all know and love. You're trying to elicit a specific adaptation from that client's kinetic chain, right? Whether it's strength, power, speed, agility, stability, mobility, so on. Wellness is tricky because it's very much every time you talk about it, you have to define what you mean by it. So it's a little bit tough sometimes to categorize wellness, but if we put it into a large category, it's really all these sort of mental, physical, emotional things that contribute to your overall well-being, and that sounds like a whole lot of a circular definition, but that's you kind of have to keep it that broad. I think when you narrow it down is when you get to the scope of the individual, right? Because if someone's there's all kinds of coaches, right? If you're a relationship coach, well, that will factor into your well-being, right? How you relate to other people, because that's really important, especially if you have loved ones in particular you're trying to relate to and be there for and support. Your financial wellness, right? You can have a financial advisor who guides you through investment or reducing debt or whatever it would be. So, all these things do factor in. Wellness is extremely broad. So while a fitness trainer or a fitness professional, whether it's a group exercise instructor or personal trainer, will impact someone's wellness, and movement in particular actually does have a pretty wide ranging set of effects on wellness. They're not necessarily a wellness professional, even though they contribute to wellness greatly.
True. There's something called the wellness wheel that's out there in the wellness world, and it talks about, as you mentioned, there's spiritual wellness, there's emotional wellness, social wellness, financial wellness, relationships, and then there's physical wellness. And it's interesting because the physical wellness is one series of spokes in that wheel. And I do believe that they all contribute and support each other, right? And we know that physical wellness can really help with social wellness. It has a factor that goes along with it. Whether or not you're more physically fit, I'm not sure whether or not that helps you make more money, but and all the other things that go along with it. But there are feeder systems, and I think there's some behaviors and disciplines and practices that when you get good at doing that in one aspect of your life, then you can start kind of shifting and focusing on how you may be able to apply that in other aspects of your life. And there's a researcher by the name of Barbara Fredrickson that talks about broadening and building. So doing little things and becoming successful at little things and broadening that, building upon that, and something they refer to as an upward spiral. And I think that's a valuable concept as we start to get into understanding wellness and fitness as a component of wellness versus them being synonymous.
Yes, very true. I mean, and the neat thing about the concept of an upward spiral, as you mentioned, is that's pretty integral, I think, to if you're going to go into, let's say, wellness coaching, where you're looking at helping a client beyond, designing workouts and understanding what they need from a training standpoint is the upward spiral can really start anywhere. And then it'll start having an impact on other areas of that person's wellness. So, you hear all these things, you hear all these these stories all the time of people go, well, I got on a fitness program and I started working out more, and, all of a sudden I wanted to eat better because, I wanted to support what I was doing working out. And then I noticed I was in a better mood and I was sleeping better and I was, less irritable at work or at home, but what it started with is maybe you started taking a walk twice a week.
Right.
And so the upward spiral can really just take a very small change, very small thing, and then it really, upward spiral, right? So it does start affecting other areas in your life, and in greater capacities each time.
That's interesting. A friend of mine from years ago had come up from Atlanta to visit me in New York City. And when I knew her back then, she weighed about 300 pounds. And when she came up and I saw her, she had lost about half that weight. And I talked to her about it. Obviously, me as a fitness professional, I was like, I need to know what's going on in your life that you made these big changes. And she said the thing that you may hear a lot that you think people don't actually do or pay attention to, which is she started walking more. She took the stairs for several floors instead of the escalator. She started increasing just physical activity, but at no point was she working out. All right. She was just more physically active, moving more throughout the day. What we refer to as NEAT, that non-exercise activity thermogenesis. And I talk about this in some of the things that I've written, which is sometimes people don't do those things because they seem too simple.
Right.
And if it seems too simple to do, then it's not enough to actually accomplish your end goal, which might be the weight loss or whatever it is. So instead of doing the small, simple things, then they just do nothing.
Very true. I mean, and it's kind of silly because it's a cliche, right? Oh, it all adds up, but it really does.
It does, yeah.
It really does. It's the little stuff. I went to a warehouse store yesterday, buying in bulk for the wheat. And I parked on sort of the other side of the building where the tire center was, and way further down. And it's silly because it's hot in Arizona, but and we're in monsoon, so it's actually more humid than people realize sometimes. But I did it because I got extra steps in. But it's little stuff. It really is little stuff. And I tried not to do the whole, how many things can I pile up when I'm trying to come into the house, right? I actually intentionally took smaller loads because of that. Like, my wife thought I was nuts. But
one egg at a time, Rich.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little extreme. Actually, I unpacked each bottle from every little thing and brought it in one at a time. Doing lateral shuffles sometimes, A skips another time. It's a lot.
Awesome.
It's a lot, but it helps. But no, it really does add up. It really, really does. It's not to be underestimated.
Well, talk to me about then, because in one instance, we're really talking about training. In another instance, we're talking about coaching. So training is really almost you need to be present for training to take place. It's taking somebody through something and repeating it and getting better at it, watching that growth. Having coaching is a little bit different, where you're not necessarily there and you're not training. Training can be a part of coaching, but there's a difference. What is that? What is that difference? And then how can we start getting better at coaching versus training?
That's a really good question. I think if you had to boil it down, if I wanted to come up with one nugget, right, as a takeaway, is you're not in charge of what success looks like. So as a trainer, we have ideas, right? We have measures, we do assessments, before, during, after, or, ongoing, whether that's you're trying to do a submax VO2, right? Some sort of cardio assessment, or even your overhead squat, 1 rep max, right? We have all these things that we can do, or a T drill, for example. So there's all these things that we're assessing, and we use those measurements and the continued improvement to define success. And And so that tends to create more of a, I sort of know what success looks like for you, because I'm the expert and I'm doing these measurements, and that's what it is, and that's all valid and that's all good. When we're looking at structured programs over time, and you're trying to create change over time, you want to make sure you're progressing properly, and you do want to assess, are you eliciting the adaptations you think you're eliciting through your training? But if we're going to coaching, what success looks like has nothing to do with you, as a professional. It's really up for the client to tell you what that looks like, especially in a wellness scenario, right? You're there to help them facilitate change, but you have to, the understanding or the perspective you have is the clients are experts in themselves. So that's that whole client-centric model that we're looking at, is when you put the clients at the center of all that, right? You hear this kind of cliche client-centric focus, but when you're able to do that and show you're just there to guide them, that they will reveal what's most important to them over time. So sometimes clients have a hard time articulating, well, I don't really know what I want, I don't know what success looks like, but over time, as you build trust and rapport, and you communicate effectively, they're going to be more vulnerable, as a client. And by vulnerable, I mean they're willing to give you the stuff that if you knew this about them, you could use it against them, right? That's kind of how I define vulnerability. Is
Okay.
I'm giving you things that you could, I'm giving you my buttons, right? When I'm vulnerable, and I'm trusting you to take care of those and to make a space for those, and use that information to guide me. But you're not telling me what success looks like. Really, that's up for me to decide.
Interesting. So I want to talk about that a little bit more, because I think we've all heard of results-focused training, and that's why people are coming to us. They're coming to us for results. But now you're talking about the benefits of client-focused coaching, and maybe this is part of it where I used to talk about being a trainer and getting frustrated by hearing another trainer say, "Hey, what do you want to do today?" when somebody walked in. And in my mind, and maybe that was true, they just didn't have a program set up for it. Now I'm a lot less judgmental of it, because I think that having the client contribute to their own workout is actually beneficial to the relationship of that client with exercise. And so having them be a participant, what are some of the other benefits of this client-focused coaching? And just to explain a little bit about some of the significance that go along with that.
Sure. Well, if you put the client in charge of what success looks like for them, there's a lot more of that immediate ownership. And in a one sense too, there's ownership to the point of they understand that if they don't achieve whatever success looks like, right, that it is up to them. So there's kind of a built-in, I hate to use the word accountability, because I think accountability is misconstrued, and kind of a misused term. I think accountability gets translated as, did you do what you were supposed to do last time? That I said we were supposed to do last time we met.
So compliance,
right? You hear that, client compliance, client adherence. That, if you look at those terms just in general, those can lead you down this slippery slope of, I'm a babysitter, right? Hey, I told you we used you to be successful, so did you do it last time, right? And then your response to that, when they come in and go, I just couldn't get it done, is kind of everything. So not to overstate it, it's really important to your relationship, right? Because how you react when they just didn't get something done makes a big difference. So when it's client centered and they've decided, for me to be well or feel well, these are the things I think need to start happening in my life. That creates a sense of ownership. I think one important thing, if we're talking about accountability too, another benefit to being client-centered is you're not holding clients accountable as a coach. And I heard this, I can't take credit for this. I heard this from someone who actually mentors coaches. She said she doesn't hold clients accountable. She holds them capable and able.
Oh, I love that.
Right. So it's not accountability. It's not I'm babysitting, right? It's I know you're capable. I know you're able. Let's talk through it.
Nice.
Right. So just because you don't get it from this last, let's say I met you last Monday and you come in today and you didn't do it, I mean, that's not the end of the world, right?
Right.
You
Right.
know, it's
Well,
not.
the other
It's
thing
not.
too is
Yeah.
if you're focusing on the positive components of it, when somebody comes in and they said, I wasn't able to get everything that I was supposed to get done. I put this on myself and I wasn't able to get it done. And then following up with what did you get done and what fell in place that allowed you to get that much done, and focusing on, because the moment they say what they didn't get done, they give all the reasons why they couldn't.
Right.
When you focus on what they did accomplish, then they give you the reasons why they did accomplish.
Right.
And that's what we need to coach. That's what we need to be there for. Their abilities to, not turning a conversation on to why they could not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and you can celebrate small win, right? And that's not to say that, as trainers, we should just be taking this sort of hands-off approach. Did you do it? Did you not? Oh, who cares? Okay, let's move on to our next exercise, right? It's really about digging in and going, okay, so you didn't get we discussed, let's say, working on your sleep hygiene, right? And starting to, dim the lights an hour before bed, turning screens off, whatever these different things might be. And let's say you said you couldn't do it, you didn't get enough an uptick in sleep quantity. You're doing 6 hours a night and you're trying to get to 8, and you know what, but you're able to get to bed 30 minutes sooner, and you did fall asleep in enough time where you got 6.5 hours sleep, right? So instead of focusing on, hey, I didn't hit the 8, it's, well, that's a win, right? Getting an extra 30 minutes is a win. So what worked for you to get that 30 minutes? Well, and then, taking that small win and going, well, you're able to do this. What about getting that extra 30 minutes? What about your mindset changed? What about your habits changed that we can keep that going, and keep focusing on that to move you forward, right? Because it's just about progress, not perfection. That's another cliche. Sorry, I'm going to be throwing a bunch of these out, but it really is, right? So, and it's not to underplay, we're all fans of structured exercise and structured workout programs, right? It's one of the things we did. I think you've talked with Brian about it in the OPT model when we first started looking at changes to it. One of the things we looked at was the whole client's choice thing. And it's really simple. It's a simple ad, but it really did come out of the fact that, hey, let's, you're taking them through a workout. You're the expert, right? Here's the situation of you're defining success, but let's give them something where they feel good about it, right? Why not throw in something they feel good about, so they know that, hey, I might have to get through some of these exercises that Rick's going to really want me to do. I know they're important. I know he's the expert, and I know they're good for me, but I'm going to get to do a ridiculous amount of bicep curls or 21s when we're done, because I just have to do it because, that's what I need to stay sane. So, that kind of stuff, it's simple, but it does make a difference. Yeah.
Yeah, I was working with one of the NBA bigs at one point, and I was training him, and he at one point he just said, I want to do bench press. And I was like, well, I don't have that on your program, and that is not what you need to be doing, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it's not on the program. And he was like, I really want to do bench press. And I was like, all right, yeah. let's go do some bench press. I'd rather you do them here with me, right? Where I can focus on things that need to be focused on. I can be there to spot you. I can talk you through a tempo. I can work it into our program, versus him just going out and going ham on bench press and then not being able to lift his arm above his head because it was during season. So it was, I mean, but you gotta give something back. And that's part of this process as well, is the giving back, the giving people what they want and also giving them what they need. And we talk about that in marketing sometimes, or in sales, like giving them what they need packaged in what they want. And
all the time.
I would say that my mom used to do that all the time, because she would for the holidays, for Christmas, she would pack socks and presents. And so it was fun opening presents, but it always sucked when you got socks. Right. But there would be another box, and sometimes there would be socks in the next box, but it was the opening the presents that was the good stuff. Right. And so, there might be bench press, and after it's over, it might be supersetted with some scaptions or some other things that he needed, but at least he got what he needed here in his head. And he got what he needed, which helped support him in his process for his game. Right.
And too, you can even explain the scaptions as, hey, this will actually help your bench. let's do this little active recovery in between sets,
Right.
and this will help your benching. So, and that's the funny thing too, is coaching is also about listening to everything that your client comes in saying, whether it's verbal, nonverbal, facial affect, their mood, just listening to everything, how they're breathing, are they sighing a lot? Are they, taking deeper breaths than normal to try and calm themselves? What's going on, right? You listen to everything. And for your player or your athlete who he just wanted to push something heavy off his chest, right? And it's not about pec development, probably, right? If he's in season, especially, maybe he's feeling like he's getting boxed out when he's going for a rebound. And he thinks if he can push a little harder, then he's going to be able to keep his position. Who knows what it's coming from? But that's kind of our job as coaches is what are you trying to get out of it? Let's do it. You'll feel better about it. And even if it's a placebo effect and the guy just feels a little bit stronger because he got those extra couple sets of bench, then he takes that to a game that day or the next day. That's an impact in a strange way. That's an impact on his mental wellness and his confidence.
Yeah. Right? That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Ladies and gentlemen, we are talking with Rich Fahmy, and he is on a product development team at NASM, and he is fantastic. Again, like my go-to guy when I just need somebody to talk me off the edge of projects I feel just aren't going the right way. And maybe by listening to him talk right now, you can understand why he's like the confidant of NASM as we go through and we're working on projects, the way that he's addressing this right now and the comfort and sincerity in which you approach things, Rich, I think are very helpful. And we learn stuff from you and your character as much as we learn from you and what you research and what you focus on in the business.
I appreciate that, man. I really do try. And if it comes across as you're getting kind of what I'm thinking and feeling, and it comes across, that's great. The industry has given me a whole lot. I've been in this business now I've earned the white hair and the white beard.
You didn't look like that. You didn't look like that when I met you years ago.
Yeah. I didn't have all this. And I've been in the business now for this is going to sound terrible, 21 years. And so I've likened myself to I'm the old guy that comes out of his house and goes, get off my lawn, right? I'm that guy of the fitness industry at this point. But I do want to really advance the industry because it's given me a lot in my life and been there for me in many different ways, allowed me to serve people and other professionals. So I care about it. I really care about it. So the information that we give to professionals, I want to make sure it's something that's helpful and applicable. And I do see this, especially with 2020 and into 2021, the focus on wellness. You see all these things about, self-care and, and then sometimes people get a sense of self-care and wellness being you're in a bubble bath with some candles lit and soft music playing. You're just taking deep breaths and trying to relax from your day. And that's part of it. I think as fitness professionals, we look at wellness and self-care as more of an active process, whether it involves movement or, practiced mindfulness or practiced gratitude techniques or, recovery techniques, or you're actively trying to do something to better your state of well-being, or making, creating a sleep routine, right? That's an active process. That's something you're trying to do to help yourself sleep better, get better quality and quantity of sleep. So anything we can do to arm professionals, I'm all for. I've had the benefit of speaking with some amazing experts, some you've had on your show, and they're really excited to talk to us, actually, because they have been seeing the need for this kind of wellness mindset to make its way into fitness because the crossover is so important, and they understand the importance, as you've seen, right, all the research that supports movement, not necessarily even structured training, but just movement and how it plays into someone's well-being in a bunch of different domains.
Well, I think that's a good thing to bring up. So we talked about the wellness wheel earlier. What are some of the components in that wellness wheel that we as fitness professionals can actually utilize? And what are some of those key performance indicators, right? Like what's our KPI as a fitness pro that can say, these are things that you should focus on to help your overall wellness?
Sure. We're big on scope around here.
Yeah.
So if we're looking at scope of a fitness professional who doesn't have any other sort of licensure or credentials specifically, like in the healthcare arena, for example, like licensed manual therapist or anything like that, if we're looking at most fitness professionals, things that are within our scope to impact wellness would be obviously the workouts, but not just the structured training, and not just the OPT model we all know and love. It's also what's someone's total movement, and then also what is their relationship with movement. So there's that from the movement side. There's also different aspects of recovery and regeneration. So, recovery can be an active process. So you're pulling out the massage gun. You're working on flexibility. You're trying to do even active recovery between sets. Engaging in mindfulness techniques. So there's also not only physical recovery, there's psychological recovery, and that could be as simple as relaxation time.
Yeah.
So I'm just getting psychological relaxation. I'm just reading a book for pleasure. I'm not reading it for work or for information gathering. And there's also mindfulness techniques, which have, I think the research on that keeps multiplying in terms of the benefits of mindfulness. And mindfulness necessarily isn't the same as meditation. It's not necessarily a meditative practice. Both will bring you kind of to that spot, but mindfulness is more of that sort of focused self-awareness without judgment, right? You kind of hear that as a common definition of mindfulness. Obviously nutrition is pretty huge. Nutrition for the sense of wellness is a little different, because oftentimes we think of nutrition in terms of performance. We look at this food as fuel mindset, which has its ups and downs. But nutrition has a lot to do with, kind of like, what's your relationship with movement, what's your relationship with food, and then overall, are you getting this healthy pattern? So it's really about the healthy dietary pattern, not necessarily what are you doing for this meal right now, right? Is that healthy or not, right? It's more about what's your pattern. That kind of stuff also enables you to enjoy time with family and holidays, right? You're not, I've talked with professionals who they're the person that comes into Thanksgiving with their Tupperware of pre-made food because it fits their plan. And these are professionals that are not preparing for a contest. They're not trying to make weight for anything. They're not trying to get on stage in a week. They just believe that's what they need to do. And they've told me they feel like a bummer. They're coming to their family with their family thinks that the professionals judging the rest of them because they're coming in with their Tupperware. And I asked one person in particular, she sticks out, and I said, so would you have rather just not have what was in the Tupperware and just enjoy Thanksgiving dinner? And, well, yeah, of course. And I said, well, why not? It's Thanksgiving dinner. It's once a year, right? So it's, what's your pattern? What's your pattern when it comes to nutrition? Not necessarily is this food good or bad. What's your relationship with eating in general? When you start labeling foods, when you start having this preoccupation with food as well. So there's different things there. Again, if anything seems to like it's stepping, if you have a client that looks like it's heading toward disordered eating, you got to refer them out to a medical professional. And then mental well-being, of course. So addressing stress is a huge one. Understanding stress a little bit, and then having different things available to you to alleviate stress, whether that's movement, whether that's mindfulness, whether that's some psychological recovery, whether it's physical recovery, just taking a break, standing up, walking around, doing some stretches, some foam rolling or whatever it is to just reset for a second, right? So those kinds of things a fitness professional can help their client with. So, stress management, recovery, mindfulness, mental relaxation techniques, mental, resetting, movement, obviously, all those things are within scope. And the great thing is if you're looking at those things and if someone were able to do things that moved in those domains, so just little progress in any one or all of those domains, doesn't really matter what, their wellness improves, right? You can't help it. Your well-being improves because you're doing something that moves that forward even a little bit.
I like it. I like it. When it comes to this kind of thing, we work with people, and let's say, and I'm use this as an example because I experienced it the other day, which is I like to go through a daily practice of foam rolling and stretching, and I just didn't feel like doing it. And I know that I'm going to feel better after I do it.
Mm-hmm.
But I also just didn't feel like getting up and doing it.
Sure.
Same thing happens with exercise. So I'm going to go for a run, and I just don't feel like going for a run. And I know that I've gotten to a point where I might consider myself a runner, because sometimes I don't feel like going for a run, and I'm just on autopilot, and I walk over and I put my shoes on, and I'm like, I don't feel like doing this. And then I put my other shoe on, I tie it, and not feel like doing this, and I get up and go for a run, not feeling like doing it, coming back and feeling so good.
Yeah.
It's done.
Yeah.
And some of that is an actual feeling of feeling more, better and awake. But also there's some of it's a sense of pride that I overcame something that I didn't want to do, that I knew was better for me, and that there was a choice that was the better of the options that I put on the table for myself.
Right.
So with that being said, how might you coach somebody who's just told you, since the last time you saw them 3-4 days ago, they had a plan, and they know that they feel like they're better when they eat this way, or when they get up and do their stretches, or when they go out for a walk, and they just couldn't make that happen since they saw you last. And there's a coachable moment, right? So I'm learning from somebody what they agreed with themselves that they would do. And then they come back and meet you, and they tell you that they did not do those things. And you mentioned that coaching is about listening to everything. So what are we listening to? And then how do we turn that conversationally with them to give perspective?
Sure. I mean, first thing I'll do is I'll have them do wall sits for 15 minutes. If you're not doing it, what are you thinking? What's wrong with you? So, the first thing, some people are listening right now and they're going, yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, right. I know.
I'll try that. I'm going to try that next time. Wall sits. Wall sits, and I'm going to give them their meal journal while they're in the wall sit and write down everything they wrote for the past week. No, it's really actually the first thing is self-kindness. That's the first thing I'm going to say. Cut yourself some slack. There's actually, I'm going to butcher this study. I'm going to butcher it, and I'm going to tell you that right now. I don't even remember the author. But it was a study that was done.
The author's going, don't say my name. Don't say
my name. You're going to butcher my stats and the outcome and all that. But the point is there's a point to it. At least there's a, I'm not going to, you don't have to worry about the statistical analysis, but there's a point to it. And they had two groups, and one group, they were both allowed to make sort of these non-healthy choices. They were given snacks to choose from, and whether it's like a donut or something we would consider non-healthy. That's an issue in and of itself, right? That's a different study that they're actually considering certain foods bad or not bad or good. So anyway, the groups that some groups had the unhealthy snack, and they were sort of left to their own devices. And I think there was some language given to them sort of reinforcing the fact that they made a bad choice. The other group, so that was the control group, the experimental group, they were actually given someone came in, a researcher came in to talk to them and said, it's cool, they kind of fostered the sense of cutting yourself some slack, some self-kindness, some self-compassion. Because what the researchers were trying to understand is, if you cut yourself some slack, does that just enable future failure? Right. And the point of it is, it doesn't. It actually improves your chances of success. So cutting yourself slack. So that's usually the first thing is, hey, if you're my client, Rick, let's talk about that. At big scheme of things, you didn't hit the targets that you set. And notice that the language I'm saying is the targets that you set, right? You defined what those targets were because you thought those are things that you would meet. And those are things that you thought you'd be able to get done. So first thing is cut yourself some slack. You're here now, and you're here talking through it. That's a win, because the win we're going to get out of that is some self-awareness now that we look back on the week, and talk through it. Tell me what it was that you felt was in the way. Was something too difficult, just flat out too difficult? What was it, right? And then you can go through your list of things of work was particularly stressful, or my son told me he had a project due at school the night before and he had 3 weeks to do it, right? Which I'm sure never happens. And and whatever it is, all these different things, the water heater is leaking, my car needs new brakes, right? All these different things that happen because life. And you would go through these different things, whatever it was that was in the way. And I would try and listen for, after I told you cut yourself some slack, I would try and listen for root causes. Right. What are the things that are really getting in the way? And is it just stress management? Maybe. It just depends on the client, depends on the person. Because so if it's a stress management thing, I would say, hey, if you're just too exhausted, right? Don't put pressure on yourself to make it the walk that you had to do. Is it what are you willing to do? Is it just simply to sit on the couch for 10 minutes and practice mindfulness or practice gratitude for the things that are going right with your day? And it's, is it a mindset thing or a stress management thing? That might help. And if you do that, who knows what can happen, right? But if they cultivate a small win, it's that whole upward spiral thing, right? Look for something that gets them a small win, and that will have an impact on future success. That will give them a little bit of confidence to go ahead and go, okay, well, if I just can't do a 20-minute run like I said I was going to do, let me do a 20-minute walk with my favorite playlist, right? Some people, we underestimate music. That's a totally different podcast. Right. One thing that I've heard an expert recommend is to have a motivational playlist on the ready, right? When you just don't feel like doing it, you just don't feel like getting the workout in, you just don't feel like getting the run in, so I could say, have the playlist ready. Don't put pressure on yourself to get the run in, but get some movement in. What's reasonable to you? And you can say, a 20-minute walk. Okay, get your headphones and get your earbuds in, hit your playlist and go for a walk. If you feel motivated to jog, go for it. You want to do some intervals, some walk, jog, whatever it is, just do it. You just want to take the dog on a stroll, but you're moving. You're out in nature or you're outdoors and you're moving, right? So it's kind of that reset that, because what you don't want is people to come in and, because, this person's probably been beating themselves up the entire week and they're probably uneasy about meeting with you as their coach. And more often than not, that could be where we lose clients because they just are embarrassed.
Right.
They don't want to come in, so they skip. And then you go, what happened to this person? They were doing okay, and then they're just gone, right? And a lot of times your clients don't always tell you why they don't come back. And it could be something as just you're doing the right thing in your mind because you're holding them accountable. But they maybe see these failures as adding up. What they see as failures, I don't like using the word failure, but they see these setbacks as adding up, and they just can't keep coming and going, I didn't do it. Whereas if you just, hey, cut yourself some slack, let's talk through what's realistic for you, and let's do that, right? The big stuff comes. That's that whole thing about meeting a client where they're at, which we say a lot in fitness. I don't think we're very successful at it, to be honest, right? Because someone goes in, I'm a total couch potato. I just sit down and I really don't, I'm exhausted. I commute for an hour each way and I get home. All I want to do is sit because I'm just tired, right? And I'm going to come in as a fitness professional and go, great. Well, we got to get you to 150 minutes a week of activity and 2 resistance training sessions a week. So, right, let's go. I'm meeting you where you're at. Right now, you're a couch potato. You're going to be here in a month. That's not really meeting with that person where they're at all.
Right.
So that's kind of, it's a mindset that a coach can make is, well, what does success look to you, right? What does that look like for you, and how can we move forward closer to that end point just a little bit every time we try.
Right. And managing success by behaviors as opposed to managing success by results-based outcomes.
Right.
And those results, like, did I hit my minutes, or did I lose this weight, or did I do my X amount of days of work? Did I get my total weekly volume in? And the truth of the matter is, like, did you do something that maybe moved you forward? And if you moved backwards, not to beat yourself up over it. And for us as a coach in this instance, not to beat them up over it. Right. And I've worked with people, especially like in my young martial arts career, where I had coaches that would get mad at me and slap me on the back of the head and say, you're supposed to do this in the fight and this. And I didn't respond well to that. And I've had coaches that look me in the eye and said, you're doing really great. There's some things that need to be worked on. I need you to pay attention when they do this. And all of a sudden I'm like, why did I ever train with that other guy? Like, why did I train with that guy? It didn't make me feel confident going into it. Didn't make me feel comfortable with them, especially in a heated moment where I'm being hit with more heat, when really what I needed to do is somebody to tell me, hey, in the midst of all of this that's going on, I'm going to be a voice that you can listen to versus somebody that that adds fire to a situation. And that type of mentality when it comes to training. I mean, working with coaches that dealt with me in heated situations made me go, oh, maybe I should be more like that guy. I'm going to be the one that talks to people and works through situations. And, this is what to be aware of and pay attention to versus, we talked about this. I told you what to do and you didn't do it. And that's frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good point, because really a lot of our clients and athletes even, they beat themselves up pretty well. They don't really need your help.
Right. Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Right? They don't really need your help. So, and one of those things that just is that whole self-evaluation thing. So that way I'm not even doing an evaluation on that client. I'm saying, you tell me, what do you think? Right. And what I'm listening for is their language about themselves too harsh? Is it too demeaning, or is it too sort of, I'm a failure, I'm never really going to get this? And that's when that whole cutting yourself some slack and let's retweak the language a little bit. You're not going backwards, right? It's just called life. But I am here to coach you and guide you and give you suggestions. Let's work on something together that moves you forward. It's really, here comes cliche number 38. It's that whole thing about staying off of the solution or staying off the result and focusing on a process instead.
Exactly.
And that really, that makes a huge difference. It really does. I had a client one time who, he told me something that actually a yoga instructor had told him that he really liked, and he goes, because he had the mind, he was talking to his yoga instructor kind of going, I don't know, I'm not really good at this, or I'm not good at that, or I don't have the flexibility or the strength to be able to do this. And the yoga instructor just turns to him and goes, it's just something to work on.
Yeah.
And then keeps walking. Right. And so that one little moment with that yoga instructor, he goes, it's just something to work on. All right. Yeah. Right. And so you apply that to everything. And so when I heard that from him, I started doing that with all my clients, really, because they just started beating up on themselves and go, well, one, is it important to you? Well, it's important. Okay, well, that's just something to work on.
Yeah.
Then let's find a way to work on it that makes sense in your life, and that will move you forward.
I love that. I love that. Well, what might be some potential next steps for CPTs if they're interested in learning more, not about training, but maybe a bit more about coaching?
That there's, the International Coaching Federation is pretty popular. The trick there is, that doesn't really happen to work with a particular kind of coach. So whether you're like a health coach, wellness coach, fitness coach, there's some resources there. But what really I would look at are look at some practices you're interested in. There's also some good research if you're a fan of searching through Medline. If you're looking at self-compassion, looking at mindfulness techniques, for example, you look at these things that people can do to manage their stress and be more focused. But I would say as a fitness professional, pick some practices to think through, and then to then start with coaching yourself on it, actually.
Nice.
So whether it's a mindfulness practice or recovery practice or sleep hygiene, or looking at nutrition differently, right? That's a huge one. That's one a lot of people I think can benefit from. Is find some of these practices and then coach yourself through it. And it's kind of hokey as it might seem. Journal it. Kind of, what would you tell yourself if? Right? How would you talk to yourself if this setback happened, or this success happened, or this small win happened? Right? What would you say to yourself to make sure that you weren't just defeated, beating yourself up, and you want to cut yourself some slack? And how would you do that? How would you? That's one thing. If I had to pick one thing, let's say, as a place to start, is talk to yourself. You would think a really good coach should talk to their client. Begin with compassion, begin with some kindness, understanding, and then hold yourself capable and able, right? Don't hold yourself accountable like, oh my gosh, I didn't hit this checklist, so I'm bad, right? You make a judgment about your ability. It's hold yourself capable and able. You can do this. You can move yourself forward. There's a difference there. I think especially in a lot of professions that are results driven and performance driven, not just fitness or athletics or performance training. There's this focus on, if I allow any kind of goes back to that study, if I allow any kind of slack or I allow any kind of kindness to take place, then that's letting them off the hook. And that's not the case. So I think that mindset shift is important too, is by allowing some self-compassion. That's not the same thing as letting someone off the hook, because they've defined what wellness is, right, and what success is. So they're still held to that standard. Right? They still have to do that. They still have to get there. It's just getting there that isn't sort of this kind of beat down mentally and emotionally on the way. I'd rather get there going, okay, I mean, little progress. I'm feeling good, feeling better. Now I can make maybe some bigger leaps in my progress. Maybe I can take a look at interval training. Maybe I can look at more structured resistance training, because I've made these little steps along the way. And you'd be surprised. I'm sure you've seen it where some clients they sort of take this weird ramp, like this kind of really slow, and then they there's like some deflection point where all of a sudden they make this crazy leap into wanting to do more things. Like they want to, take some hikes they've never taken before. They want to, run marathons, or they want to, they all of a sudden hit this deflection point where they're like, okay, I can really do some cool stuff, but getting there seems kind of slow.
Right. And that's about the process. So, you don't get there by focusing on the end result. And that analogy of what's the to eat a whale, what's the how do you eat a whale, and the answer is one bite at a time. So, and sometimes we look at the whale and we go, there's no way, and to be honest, the whale is the whale. What's in front of you is what's in front of you. The journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step, and all you can do is focus on the steps. You can focus on the bites that you can take. And a lot of times we focus on what we can't do instead of focusing on what we can do. And that's where that shift needs to happen, is focus people's attention on their abilities and capabilities, as you said. So Rich, thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah, of course, man. Yeah, it's a process, but it's totally doable. It really is for most people. And I will put a little qualifier, a little asterisk on that. If you're looking at someone who's preparing for a contest, a practice, or a competition, right? Obviously, there is a timeline and a result. That's very, very important. So that's a little different than a majority of our clients. So there are metrics there are very important in moving on the way. But you can actually take wellness practices though and integrate them into athletes. I was talking with someone who is the performance and wellness director for an NBA team, actually one very close to you in geographic location. And they are actually kind of successful at integrating wellness practices into performance programming, like gratitude and mindfulness. The interesting he did say though is it's hard to shift professional athletics and strength conditioning into that mindset. But he looked at it as to talk about small wins. He looked at it as one thing a year. He says it was a point where I had to just think about one or two practices a year to integrate, or a season, I should say. So he wasn't trying to hit them over the head with all these different things they should do. He just picked a couple things that are really important that he knows that'll improve the wellness of the athletes and then therefore their performance.
I love that. And I love that you took time to be with me on this podcast today, man. Like it's nice. If we sit there and we have a phone call, and as we talk, I'm like, man, why can't we just record this phone call and put it on the podcast? It'd be
that's pretty much what this is. Yeah, just record this phone call.
It'd be so helpful for people just to listen to us chat and help people. At least it's helpful for me. So again, thank you for your time. If people have questions for you, they want to reach out to you, or social media, anything like that you want to put out there for them.
Oh, sure. Instagram's just Rich Fahmy, RichFahmy. It's easy peasy. You can find me there. It's an easy way to go.
Perfect. Excellent. Rich, thank you so much for your time, your
Rick.
insights, and everything that you've given to us. And for those of you, let me give my gratitude for you being a podcast listener. So thank you for your time and listening to the show. If you want to reach out to me, you can hit me up on Instagram at dr.rickrichey, or you can email me, rick.richey@nasm.org. Thanks for listening. This has been the NASM CPT Podcast.
All right.